Hi. I wanted to talk to you for a little bit about Chapter 1 in our guidance class. So, when you think about the name guidance in the first place, and your first chapter talks about this a bit, we think about more of a guide, like a river guide, someone that's helping us along our way. And so that's a big piece of what we're going to be talking about. Not so much consequences, not so much punishments, for a variety of reasons. One big reason is that it would be considered not developmentally appropriate practice. So you'll hear about DAP or developmentally appropriate practices. So we might want to certainly redirect, support, give a little think time or time away for someone to cool down if they're having a really hard day, but a lot different than big timeouts or groundings or punishments per se. And so your textbook's going to keep coming back to this idea. I have to say it's not uncommon, and so maybe some of you are thinking, oof, I think I've done this sometimes, or I certainly have seen lots of people that have done this. I have too. I've seen 1-year-olds put in timeouts or scolded pretty harshly. It is not something that's developmentally appropriate, and so if that's a practice that we're doing, it's not unless we're a director, necessarily our place to correct anybody else. But certainly in our own practice, how can we do a lot more to guide, redirect, support, role model, and things like that, and make sure that we're not treating 3 or 4-year-olds the same way we would treat a 7 or 8-year-old. A big piece of that is also always modeling. So that could be thinking aloud, or if you find yourself becoming frustrated, saying things like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm going to take a deep breath. Or, gosh, when I'm feeling angry, I like to get a drink of water or do something else. Things like that, so they're hearing it. You do think alouds when you're reading, like, I wonder what's going to happen next in the story. Well, you can do think alouds in a developmentally appropriate way when you're trying to talk about ways to deal with social and emotional things as well. Always, and this is a belief that many psychologists and educators have had, but certainly in early childhood, the belief that the social emotional piece and how we feel connected with others comes even before the academics is a really common one. And it's one of the reasons why I have a background both in education and in psychology. I did more and more related to the counseling piece and the social emotional piece because I started feeling like it was a piece that was sorely neglected. And I think a lot of children are suffering because of that. There's a lot of theorists and psychologists that are mentioned in this first chapter, and a few that I wanted to mention that are not in your text that are discussed that is humanistic psychologists. So this humanistic philosophy, which is mentioned in your text, is a very positive aspect of psychology. It's people that believe that we are all doing the best we can, and we're not kind of negative or bad by nature, that we all want to love and belong. And so if we're struggling, and if a kiddo's struggling, they're not sure how to do that, or maybe they don't have the coping skills or the techniques or the ability to do that yet, but what they're really wanting is that love and connection and belonging. Some names that you may be interested in looking more into later, even though they're not mentioned in your text, includes Carl Rogers. So he was a famous psychologist that talked about unconditional positive regard. And so that could be as a counselor or a teacher. And that means we love these little people and we believe the best in them, even when their behaviors aren't great. So I might be frustrated by or really exasperated by the behavior of a child, but that's very different than disliking the child, him or herself. And so it's very important that we have this. If we can't, we're not going to be able to be effective, and the kiddos are going to be able to feel this as well, and it's just not a good situation. And the other piece is that we believe that they can, with proper support and guidance, they can grow and develop and do well, and we're here to help them do that. Dreikers is mentioned in your textbook, and the idea that children misbehave, they all want acceptance, but they become misguided, and if they can't get acceptance, they'll settle for attention getting or things like that. A psychologist that's related to this that is not mentioned in the text is William Glasser, and he has a theory called choice theory. And he also said that at the heart of all behavior, good, bad, even disordered behavior, is that need for love and belonging. So that comes before anything else. And so we need to think about setting up our classes, and hopefully we will role model that for you in our class together as well. How do we start with community building? Start with love and acceptance and nurturing and caretaking. And I believe it's important at any age, certainly with the little ones, but even with us adult learners. After that, William Glasser also said we need some power and some control. That looks different when you're 1 or 2 or 3, but it's still important. So thinking about if there's opportunities for children to have some control or some power over what's happening in their little lives at school. The last thing I wanted to mention is also role modeling. We're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, you make mistakes. Let children know this and talk about mistakes are okay. We can admit them. We can, just move forward and try our best from then on. Children are not going to think that we make mistakes, and if you're coming across angry or having a rough day, or even if you make a mistake, they may take it on to themselves and believe that they are the cause for that. So I'll share a brief little story in closing. There was a preschool age boy I was working with this summer, and he did what a lot of kiddos do when they get frustrated. He's 4, and he was pushing or hitting when he got frustrated. He didn't like what someone said, and so he'd hit. Brilliant, sweet, cute little boy, but this was something he did. So the first time we just tried to talk for a moment. We talked about strategies for next time. The second time it happened, I said, let's talk to Mom too. You're not in trouble, but we want to work on this because we want to make sure that Home's knowing that we're working on this as well so that I can keep helping you out. And so he had a great rest of his day, but he had done some more pushing and hitting. And so when Mom came to pick him up, I talked with her about it, and I could see his shame in his face right away. And he just looked so concerned and upset. And luckily, Mom was a very supportive lady. It's not like she was scolding him or anything, but he was just very upset about having the conversation. So he was looking down, and I kind of got down to his level, which is another thing we can do to support and direct, right? Let's make sure that we're not up above, but we bend down or sit down so that we're on their level. And I said, it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. We all just try our best. You're a great kiddo. And I said some of the things that he was doing great with as well. And I said, we'll keep working on this. And I said, do you think I make mistakes too? And he slowly looked up and he shook his head no. And that's so common. And of course, then I said, oh my goodness, yes, I make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And I'm a good person and you're a good person. Everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. And he kind of lit back up then and smiled. So just remember, they're not thinking, as adults, we can go, oh yeah, my professor or my teacher, well, she makes mistakes. But as little ones, they're really thinking of us as kind of these all-powerful, kind of perfect beings. And so if someone's having a bad day or something goes wrong, they're feeling really bad about themselves, but they're not unless we're role modeling that and letting them know, oh gosh, I just made a mistake. Oops, I guess I'll try better. We need to say those things, and we need to say them out loud often for them as well. So again, our focus throughout class is going to be that community building, what we can do to redirect and to model and to support our youngest learners as they're continuing to grow and develop in our care. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you soon and seeing you in person soon as well.